Hello, I'm Anthony. I've just yesterday actually completed submission of my first album to the world. What you can see here is a confirmation notice from a company called CD Baby. That's the company that I chose to use as my distributor, and I'm going to go through that process today. How did I reach that conclusion? Well, I'm going to go through the criteria that I had for the process of getting my music live and highlight some of the decisions that you'll have to make if you want to go down this route as well. I've had this YouTube channel for what feels like many years now. I think it's 6. And over the course of that time, I've released a lot of music on the channel itself, but I've never distributed it anywhere else. YouTube is the only place you can hear my music, and I want a more permanent legacy. Beyond the very fluid world of my YouTube releases, I quite regularly release multiple updates for the same piece of music. The entire process is very fluid and I enjoy that, but I also want this definitive moment in time concept that you get from an actual release. So this little mini-series is going to comprise multiple videos. Today we're going to talk about the process of selecting your distributor. In the second video, I'll talk about how I collated my music together, how I selected what was going to be released, and how I processed that music ready for release. In the third video, I'll walk you through the actual process of submission itself. There are many different decisions that you have to make and questions that you have to answer. I'll describe that process in detail. And then the fourth video, I have no idea what it's going to contain because that will be the post-release video. At the moment, my release is in the pending queue. You see down at the bottom of this window, it says the music's being inspected. Apparently, it can take up to 2 weeks for the music to be analysed. Presumably, they're going to determine that it doesn't contain profanity, as is one of the statements that I've had to make, that it's not subject to other person's copyright. And then after that approval process has hopefully gone smoothly, there'll then be another period of time when the music disseminates to all of these different digital platforms. I'm not there yet, but I have got to the point where it's actually being submitted and it is being considered. So we'll cover all of that over the course of this series. But today, as I said, all I want to talk about is the process of choosing your distributor. This is a perfect opportunity to ask ChatGPT to do a lot of the heavy lifting for me. Now, at that point, I distilled 4 pieces of information that I considered to be most important to me in making the choice. And so I threw that information into ChatGPT. So here's the statement. I'm considering publishing my music. I've identified 6 companies that offer distribution and royalty collection services. So this was my kind of manual starting position where I'd Googled music distribution, and there were 6 different names that I'd seen from multiple different sources that I thought to myself, right, well, I'm not going to go with a tiny distribution company. I want to minimize the possibility that they're going to go bust within a year. So I'll concentrate on these. They were Lander, TuneCore, DistroKid, Amuse, iMusician, and CD Baby. So I'm specifically giving ChatGPT those 6 names, and then I'm giving it the 4 primary metrics by which I want it to make some kind of categorization. The first one I wanted to know was, do any of these distribution services have upload limits, or are they per release? Secondly, and this is actually the most important of all of the criteria, whether my releases will expire if I terminate the contract. A large part of why I'm doing this at all is that I want a permanent legacy, a single location where all of my music will be stored, and I don't want the possibility that if I cancel a subscription, then all of my music is going to be withdrawn from these global platforms. Number 3, whether the company claims a percentage of royalties, purely administrative question. And 4th, how much is it actually going to cost me? So I've then asked ChatGPT, give me a comparison of these 6 companies, highlighting their relative strengths and weaknesses with particular reference to the criteria outlined here. In typically enthusiastic manner, ChatGPT told me that I had a good shortlist. Thanks very much, ChatGPT. You're very life-affirming. I checked each service's official documents, blah, blah, blah. So it's gone away, actually spent over a minute thinking about this, which is quite a long time for ChatGPT. Now, I've paused on this table for you to take a screenshot, and you can read this information in your own time if you want. But actually more useful is to go to the summary, because it's a very good, short annotations, practical takeaways. Thanks very much, ChatGPT. Once again, you've done all of the heavy lifting for me, condensed everything down into a very simple, easily digestible format. some of these services fall by the wayside very quickly. As you'll see later, I turned my requirement for my music to be perpetual into a prerequisite. Some of these companies fall off the map, and DistroKid is one of them. It's largely a subscription-based system. If you actually want your music to stay beyond your subscription period, you need to pay these legacy fees, and it actually ends up being significantly more expensive than some of the other services. So whilst initially my head was at first turned by DistroKid, in the end I decided against it. I was similarly a little bit confused by the TuneCore payment plan, because they do have a pay per release process, but if you fail to renew, stores can take your music down. Lambda was an interesting one because it offers a much more comprehensive service. I wasn't a huge fan of their website. This was actually the first company that I investigated manually before switching to a GPT-based query, and I was kind of wallowing around for quite a while, building up quite a list of different options that I might need to consider before in the end I decided to try and simplify things. I don't specifically have anything against Lambda apart from the fact that they offer far more services than I actually need. So I wanted a simpler process, but they were definitely in the race. Amuse removes your content ID. If you cancel your subscription, that's no good to me because I have a YouTube channel, so content ID is important to me. I think iMusician were actually a genuine competitor, and in the end it came to a bit of a coin toss between them and CD Baby. Let's have a look at the overall picks that ChatGPT highlighted to me. Upload limit isn't my top priority. In fact, I went on to clarify about how many pieces of music I would release in a year, and we were able to work our way through this question. If you want your releases to remain live, again, the most important thing, CD Baby, iMusician and Lambda. The royalties question is one of the biggest quagmires. Many of the companies offer different kinds of services. The CD Baby's very simple approach is a flat 9% on digital distribution revenue. I can handle the simplicity of that. I know where I stand. There aren't lots of different numbers being thrown at me. And that's the price you pay for longevity. If you want your music to stay there forever, obviously any revenue is going to be on a percentage basis because that company is offering a service in perpetuity. If you're releasing lots of music, then you might be tempted to go for something like DistroKid or Amuse because they have yearly options. Again, I'm far more based on the longevity than the subscription, and so that turned out not to be the most important thing for me. So here we are with the final suggestions. Release once, leave it live forever. The most important thing. Don't mind taking the 9% hit from CD Baby. Choose them. Do you want built-in mastering tools? Well, yeah, you might very well. I might very well have. In the end, I chose to master my own music, which I know is a big no-no in the musical world, but that's just simply my own personal choice. Do you want a free tier to test and possibly upgrade later? No, not really. I know what I want. So that wasn't a particularly big appeal for Amuse. Do you want per-release control and publisher services? No, not really. TuneCore is a mature choice, fine. But I wasn't particularly bothered about that metric. If your priority is no annual takedowns plus flexible pay per release or label options, well, I'm not so bothered about the flexible aspect, but iMusician do offer a service that would have been perfectly appealing. And so it asked me for some clarifications that would allow me to tailor its response further. Roughly how many releases do you expect per year? Do you want YouTube monetization? Not bothered about TikTok. Are you bothered about one-time fee versus subscriptions? And so I answered those questions. I think I'll probably release about 20 pieces of music per year, songs or instrumentals. It's important to me that my music never disappears. I have a separate YouTube channel, so it would be useful to link that to my releases. And once again, ChatGPT gives me a big cuddle. Perfect. That extra context makes your priorities much clearer. And here's the too long didn't read. Top pick is CD Baby, runner-up is iMusician, and here's some services to avoid, bearing in mind what I've stated. And here are the reasons why CD Baby is the best choice, and actually it's pretty much on the basis of this. Once I confirmed independently the truth of all of this stuff, this is why I chose CD Baby for my distribution mechanism. You pay once per release, and then your music stays there forever. No new renewals at all. This 9% commission that they take effectively takes the place of what would be an annual renewal. You've got to pay somehow. You know, they're giving you a service. You can't expect this to be free forever. Well, I choose to pay a percentage-based commission. Integrates cleanly with YouTube and YouTube Content ID. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. And you can upload in WAV or MP3. I don't care because I was going to upload in WAV anyway. Excellent global reach and optional publishing and sync licensing. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. That's important. So what are the cons? The 9% royalty commission. I know full well that I'm going to be paying that going in. I accept that. And you pay this one-time fee per release. Now, this answer is based on songs because it's $10. It's $10 per song, but it's actually $15 per album release. And albums can theoretically be multiple hours long. In the end, as we'll discuss in other videos in this series, I chose an album of about 45 minutes long for purely personal reasons. But $15 for an entire album is crazy good value. It's kind of unbelievable, really, that you can get such a service for such a small amount of money. There is an asterisk, this caveat, the sync licensing business. We'll come back to that in a moment. And then finally, iMusician would have been a perfectly good alternative. I have nothing really to say against that company. It was just I'll go with the number one recommendation. Thank you very much. And I'll scroll through each of these companies relatively slowly so that you can take screenshots of this stuff if you want to read it. But basically, I'm not going to read all of this out because it's a little bit tedious. The 5 companies that didn't make it for all sorts of different reasons. Okay then, this is something of a hidden cost because the ChatGPT response never mentioned the specifics of any of this at all, although it didn't draw my attention to these other hidden or potentially hidden costs. As far as CD Baby is concerned, these are called CDB Boost options, and they cost you an additional $40 per release. So I ended up paying $55 for my album release, the $15 for the album itself plus $40 for this stuff. And basically this is everything else that can possibly ever happen to your music. Firstly, we have the Mechanical Licensing Collective. This organisation collects mechanical royalties. So this is basically fees for streaming. If somebody plays my music on a platform like Twitch, for instance, then I'm going to be able to generate revenue from that. Sound Exchange is the second company, and these are non-interactive streaming services. Pandora is a good example of that kind of thing. And finally, Sync Money. This is if your music's used in movies, TV shows, ads, games, etc. So basically, any environment in which my music is ever used ever again for the rest of my life, one of these bodies is going to identify that copyright, that it belongs to me, that I am the 100% copyright owner of that music, and that fee is going to be collected and delivered to me. I have no idea how any of this is going to happen. This is all something for the future. But if you'd asked me independently a year ago, how much do you think it costs for you to publish your music on every single distribution platform in the world and collect license fees or royalties, regardless of how your music is used in any context, then I would have put at least a 3 or 4 figure sum on that number. The fact that I was able to publish an album for $55, actually minus my 25% new member discount, is absolutely insane. That's a complete no-brainer to me. It's highly likely that the majority of the music that I publish will be in album form, so it's going to be 45 minutes up to an hour, I would guess. And it's nice to know that from this point onwards, I'm completely covered in every respect. Now, when we go through the physical process of me going through the application, I'll show you a little bit more detail about some of the information that you have to provide. It is quite detailed. It's going to take you several hours, both in the process of creating your initial account on your chosen distributor, but then also preparing your music and actually submitting it. But once it's done, it's done. In the next episode, I'll dip back into the music and I'll talk a little bit more about how I selected what music was going to be released and how I prepared it for submission to CD Baby. Hope you've enjoyed this one today. Please hit like if you did. I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.